This book here was a 20-year journey for me because all of my recipes were based around cashews. And I made some amazing stuff. My cream cheese made from cashews is one of my proudest recipes. But then I learned that cashews actually aren't a raw nut. They're actually not raw at all.
That's what I've heard, yeah.
We have a whole industry for living foods that's based around a nut that's not only is it not raw, it's completely toxic when it's raw. You can die from eating it, so they have to pasteurize it. So when you go to the store and you have what they say is raw cashews, it's actually just pasteurized cashews that are less pasteurized than completely roasted cashews. But that means they also have more neurotoxins in them because they pasteurize it to get the neurotoxins out. So it just was like an absurdity to me that, wait a sec, if you want to do living foods, you should have foods that are actually raw. And I just saw so many living food chefs and restaurants basing so much of their menu that they bragged about. Look how creamy we can make these sauces.
Yeah.
Look how
Everywhere
creamy
still it's like that a lot now, right?
And I would eat the food and I would be like, oh, this is delicious. And then I would be having indigestion, you know, like 20, 30 minutes later and just being crazy gaseous. And it was like, why? Because cashews are not digestible. They're actually extremely indigestible, and they're like the lesser evil of just eating dairy. So we're blessed here with a resource of coconut, and so I took the extra time and I rewrote all of my recipes to have coconut as the base for the cream instead of cashew. As I did like an oil detox, I saw how much oils were integrated into everything. I mean, like as chefs, we're trained to use oil so much. And so when I would even go out to restaurants, I would try to describe to people, we want this, but we don't want the oils in it. And it was just like they didn't really know how to do that. It was such a codependency. And the thing is with oils is that, you know, if you were to have a tablespoon of, let's say, sesame oil on your salad, you know, it probably took 5,000 sesame seeds to make that tablespoon of oil.
That's
so
a good point.
When you take that tablespoon of oil, it goes in your system and your body's like, did we just eat 5,000 sesame seeds? And it's trying to equate where's the shell, where's the husk, where's the meat of the seed, because it's gauging the oil per increment off each little tiny sesame seed.
So how that affects our body, right?
So it gets dumped in the gallbladder, and the gallbladder primarily is for fighting infection and producing bile. Yeah. And so when you do a gallbladder detox, one of the big things, you have to remove oil. So coconut oil, raw coconut oil is a saturated fat, so we're kind of good on that.
So maybe we should watch if we're raw and we're still incorporating like a lot of oil in our lifestyle, eh?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, raw coconut oil is okay, and olive oil, if you can get access to it within like 3 weeks of it being pressed is still okay, because it's still alive. Yeah. Past there, it switches to a rancidity, and then it's compromised. So if you can find an olive oil that has to be put in the fridge, that's a good sign. Our body expects that about 80% of our enzymes are supposed to come from our food. So when we have this dead food that we're eating, our pancreas, which is the primary house for all of our enzymes, has to deliberate all of these enzymes just to break our food down. And it's conflicting, because if you're eating food for energy, but your pancreas has to deliberate all of these enzymes to just break the food down that's actually supposed to be giving you energy, instead of those enzymes actually doing other things in your body, which they would if you had food that was enzyme enriched. That's the biggest thing for me, is that, you know, one of my teachers said, you eat life, you add to the life of the body. You eat death, you add to the death of the body. So if you're eating things that are dead, and that could be anything, vegetables, when you cook vegetables, you're cooking the life out of them. Phoenix actually used to be a house with adaptogenic probiotics in you. So if you ate a poison plant, it would actually read that and it would adapt and it would produce epigenetic regeneration aspects to the body. So if you eat a poison plant and the toxins go in, they damage the epigenetic infrastructure of your DNA. So through history, we had this protective organ that used to actually regenerate the epigenome if we were introduced to toxic things. Wow. So, but they mark that the decline in our digestion came with the introduction of fire and cooking these meats, because before we cooked meat over an open flame, they were dehydrating it, they were eating it fresh, they were eating it raw. Yeah. And so they've marked the digestive decline and the destruction of this organ that's now become our appendix, which we consider to be expendable, marked with open flame and the concept of the technology of cooking things over an open flame, because as we ate these meats that were dead and charred and cooked, it actually damaged the digestive tract in humanity through history, and is kind of, now it's of course been enabled and fueled by the industrialization of food, where we just, everything is processed now. Like
it's out of control, right?
It's amazing. And our microbiome, our guttural integrity has been under attack for a really long time. So so eating things with more enzymes is naturally going to support the replenishment of the microbiome. And obviously I'm a big supporter of probiotics. We have 100,000 coconuts that go to waste here on Kauai every month.
No way.
Yeah,
what?
It's like
That's crazy. And these coconuts
natural...
are fantastic. These are the best coconuts I've ever had in my life.
So when I heard that, I was like, wow, this is just amazing. I've lived here 17 years that nobody has utilized this natural resource. There are coconut processing facilities on every other island. We need to build one of these, and not just to produce our yogurt and our kefirs, but we take the husk, and the husk is one of the #1 fertilizers for the gardening industry and even the cannabis industry. So, and then the shell itself we burn down into carbon that can be used for industrial based technology.
That's incredible.
So we generate all kinds of things off this beautiful natural resource. But the yogurt itself, I started with a 52 strain master culture, and two of the strains of probiotic that we have, one of them is Lactobacillus ranier, which is actually the same probiotic that's in human breast milk. So
no way.
When you're breastfeeding, these probiotics actually release from a woman's body into her breast milk, and that's what builds your immune system from breastfeeding. And so the same lactobacillus is in sourdough bread, which is another example of, like, if you're going to eat these things, sourdough bread has this lactobacillus strain in it, and it's also what's called a slow burning carbohydrate, which is what you want. It's a holistic food.
Wow.
Fast burning carbs boost the glycemic levels, and they throw your whole system off.
Yeah.
And every form of bread was really sourdough based. With the industrialization of food, they wanted to find a way to produce more bread, to capitalize on the volume to ship out, and so they started adding external yeasts. And this is where we all kind of got cheated, and our guts got cheated. And the sad thing is, if your grandparents and your parents ate these foods, they damaged your epigenetic infrastructure, and so that's where we end up getting things like gluten allergies.
Yeah, which
none of that stuff existed.
I had that before I went raw. Yeah, that stuff didn't exist before.
The radionics field is a field that's around any electromagnetic device that you have, and we're so desensitized to them. We're so desensitized to the technology, and just even staring at the screen and the blue light has shown deterioration for eyesight. We have a generation of kids that are getting nearsighted now because they're staring at these phones.
So do you avoid it? Like, you don't use it too much? Or?
I try my best to. I try to give my children all of the knowledge and wisdom, but it's so integrated.
I know.
The concept of it is so integrated. The methodical aspect of how they'll check it and they'll look at it. And of course, then you have the dopamine serotonin flux that happens when you look at your phone. Anytime you look at your phone, you get a release of dopamine. We used to have to earn our dopamine. We would have to accomplish something, or go climb a tree, or perform a chore or something, and we would get that dopamine release. Now, literally, you just have to do this and you get these spurts of dopamine. So what I've seen from the youth is this kind of comatose codependency on dopamine and a real lack of motivation, and it's really disturbing to bear witness to. And I'd say the mentality that we eat food for taste and not substance. That's another one that I was like, okay, if we can make this food taste really good, if we can make a lasagna, if we can make a burger, if we can make nachos, and the flavor is there, but then the substance is there. So after you eat it, you feel good.
Yeah, I feel like your food is just so satisfying on a soul level, but then you feel good, because that's the key, right? We want to feel our best. Any tips for people watching how to make better food, how to make better tasting living food?
Really dive into the awareness that taste is something that you experience for a matter of seconds. I mean, if you're chewing a long time, what are you going to chew for? 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds? Most people are eating within 3 to 5 seconds. They're consuming their food. They're getting the taste. They're having the enjoyment from it. But now it's in you for the next however long, depending on how toxic the food is or how congestive or undigestible the food is. Now it's stuck in you, and the experience of processing it is not that it goes in one end and out the other. It's, you know, food gets distributed in your fat cells, the toxins do, and it's in you. So really weighing out substance over taste. Obviously, like, you know, like our walnut carne we make to taste like real, you know, nut, like beef crumble. And, you know, if you just had beef, ground beef, and you didn't flavor it, it's just going to taste bland. The reason it tastes good is the cumin and the smoked paprika and the coriander and the chili powder. Those are the reasons that people enjoy that. I would say I had a really powerful, you know, multi-layered detoxification of the first probably 18 years of my life, accumulating a lot of the stuff, yellow 5, red 6, all of these things that we were eating, not understanding that, you know, with the industrialization of food came some really toxic things they were throwing in as preservatives. They were throwing in it for presentation to make it look bright and red or green or blue. And we kind of trusted. We trusted this system. We trusted what they were doing. Now they're about to outlaw one of those. I don't know if it's Red 2 or Red 40, but they're literally about to, the FDA is about to remove it from the edible, like, food colorings for, you know, and that's crazy because it's been in our food system for decades that they've been serving that out, you know? In fact, I saw a couple that said, remove the red 40 and the red 2 from your children's diet, and it's amazing what it's in, from Doritos to you name it. And they said that their children's behavior changed so dramatically from removing the red dyes. In like a week, they were blown away about how their children. It's amazing because, you know, you are biochemical, so your perception of reality is biochemical, which means the biochemical nutrition that you take in affects literally your perception of reality. Your breath is one of the most powerful things that can activate your health and wellness. I would say that your human body is designed to be touched. So all this tissue is actually porous, like a sponge. So everything that you feel and everything that you physically do, all your feelings and all your physical animation each day chemically saturates in your tissue like a sponge. And we're actually supposed to just squeeze. Squeeze and be squeezed. Squeeze and be squeezed to drain the saturation.
Like ourselves?
Yeah.
With other, like touch with other people?
Just some palpation. Just
really?
Yeah. And think about it. When we don't get that, our sponge continues to saturate. And that saturation includes being picked on when you were 6 years old, that car accident you had at 21, all of those things are held in these residues that are in your sponge, your spongy porous tissue. And so what happens is, because we were never supposed to hold this stuff, we were supposed to be releasing as we went. A really similar metaphor that's really good to understand is, okay, every day we have to brush our teeth, right? If we don't brush our teeth, we get this film that collects on our teeth and our gums that we could call tartar. If we don't brush the tartar off, what happens? It hardens into plaque, and that starts eating away the enamel of our teeth. Well, your body, similarly, on a daily cycle, has an accumulation. It's not tartar, it's this neurochemical residue and this calcification that comes about in crystallization of protein from you tearing your muscles every day. And then every time you feel something, you have neuropeptides that release that make you feel happy, make you feel sad. So you're supposed to be brushing the body like you're brushing your teeth, and nobody taught us that. We didn't get the memo. And so what happens, we accumulate all of the versions of ourselves are sitting in our chemical memory. They affect how we listen, how we learn, how we love. And so when we flush those, it makes us lighter and freer. And we become a liberated, present version of ourselves, and not a byproduct of all the versions of ourselves that are still mucking around in us. And you see it with adults, where you see a 60-year-old adult male who's owns a company with 50 employees and makes 6 figures, and he's having a tantrum in traffic because someone cut him off. That's the act of a child. But he hasn't reprogrammed himself from this, as one of my teachers used to say, we're listening to ourselves as babies. We're all like babies in adult bodies because no one taught us we have to release these premature versions of ourselves that are in our chemistry. So I would say that would be number 2, is how important touch is for healing yourself. And then I would say the third one is eating life adds to the life of your body, and you eat death, you add to the death. Very simple principles for health and wellness. It's about the breath, it's about the healing touch, and it's about eating things that nourish your body, that support your pancreas and your enzymatic infrastructure and don't deplete it. Don't take more energy to give you energy, right? Because it doesn't make sense. Why would I, if you had to put fuel in your car and it actually stressed your engine to get your engine to drive forward, it would be like putting diesel in a traditional engine. So, and that's the thing, is that right now, especially with our world being toxic, with the radionics fields, with us mentally and psychologically being under attack in so many ways and so bombarded with fear, it's up to us to do everything we can to rise against that. And to be as healthy as we can. And that lies on you. That is, you are in charge of that. This is about your personal accountability in doing things to actually empower, activate, and heal yourself.
And do you do any cleansing? Do you believe in like juice cleansing or fasting or any of that? Or no?
I do. I can adamantly speak for both dry fasting and water fasting. In fact, there's a reason why in the Bible and in Scripture they removed the passages about fasting, which is really interesting.
They did?
Like, why would they take that out?
Yeah.
Especially in Matthew, he talks specifically about it, and I'll tell you why. Because in order for you to see the magic of what happens when you fast, you have to do it. You can't describe it to people. And so as you get 2 and 3 days into fasting, I mean, if you think about it spiritually, if you choose to cut off the physical connection to things, to food, that naturally brings you closer to energy. I saw so many anemic and malnourished people who had the vegan diet. I was like, okay, we need to create a chain of living foods that if you're going to eat this way, this is the way to do it. If you're going to eat nuts, you need to sprout them because they produce neurotoxins, and you want to get those neurotoxins out because it's trying to defend itself.
So it's not good for us just to eat like nuts by the handful just from the bag,
No,
right?
think about it. Animals can defend themselves by running away from you. What are plants' defense system? Their plants' defense system is to produce toxins, neurotoxins. And if you think about it, a giraffe only eats one type of leaf. A koala eats one type of leaf. Nature is very orchestrated so that plants can survive, that a different species develops an immunity to a specific lectin or neurotoxin that plant produces, and then that's why that animal is the only one that eats that specific plant. We as a species are the only species that eat a bunch of different stuff. Everything else in nature is very regimented. So when I found out that 50 people die from potato poisoning a year, I was like, whoa, because not all of us have the ability to digest some of these things. Food is medicine. It's not supposed to be something that you satiate your emotional roller coaster from, that you're filling a void from, or that you're just looking to fill up being empty. It would be better that you actually fast, build an appetite, and eat something substantial at some point when you break that fast.
I love that. Yeah.
So I would say
Wow.
closing reflections. Loving each other is much easier when you come into a loving space with yourself. And one of the most powerful ways you can love yourself is to nourish yourself properly. It's not a form of loving yourself to eat off of taste, and then your body has to deal with the lack of substance in there, because mind and body are two lovers. So this lover puts this lover through all kinds of things that if it was up to this lover, it would not do. Even a hike, for you, you're enjoying the breeze and the birds. Oh, this is beautiful. For the body, nerves are firing, muscles are tearing, blood is pumping. It's a whole process for the physical body to provide the human experience for the mind. And so what we see a lot, especially with very immunologically compromised people, or a lot of patients I see, is that the disconnect between mind and body has caused a real rift in the marriage. And that's not a good thing with mind and body as we get older, because this lover, the body, who has been telling the mind, hey, you need to deal with this. Hey, could you deal with this? Hey, we really need a detox. And the mind is just going from experience to experience in the 5 sense reality. It's not listening. So just like if you were in a relationship and you kept trying to talk to that person and they weren't listening, you'd be like, all right, you know what? I'm not even trying to tell you any of this anymore. I'm not going to try to even communicate. And so what happens is this is where surprises come up. This is where, I got diagnosed with this cancer, this cancer growth. It's like cancer grows in you for 10 years before it's detectable.
No way. Wow.
So, but remember, this lover, the body, doesn't communicate linguistically. It doesn't communicate. It communicates through sensation.
Really? Yeah.
So if you have inflammation, that's your body saying, deal with this area. You know, this is hurting. The body doesn't want you to be in pain. It's its way of communicating.
Wow.
And so we're not taught from the mental perspective, because we're so mental minded, how to feel the body. So we get very disconnected from feeling.
So true.
So we miss a lot of messages that this thing is sending
We do,
us.
yeah.
So,
And how can we listen to our heart more even, you know?
yeah, or our body
Yeah, our
is learning
body.
to be in our breath. Our breath and our parasympathetic nervous system, which is tough because so much we're driven in the sympathetic, which is fight or flight. And that's the other thing, is when you're in fight or flight, your body misses a lot of the higher functioning things that it needs to be doing, processing that bile, processing more enzymes from the pancreas. It's overlooking it, because if you were running away from a bear, your body wouldn't be focused on digesting your food. Your
Yeah.
body would be directing your energy to your arms and legs to run away from that bear.
Exactly.
So we're not running away from a bear, but we're in the same psychology in this world of go, 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 fight or flight.
Yeah.
So it's very hard for us to flip into that parasympathetic nervous system, which is where the listening comes in, where
Yeah.
the mind can listen to the body. But one of the
Okay.
best ways is laying on your back, being present with your breath, and actually talking to your body. Our body has been there for us. It's giving us our experiences, going, going, going all the time. And the mind is going, going, going. And the five sense reality takes very little time for the body, which is providing all these experiences for us. So that's my big advice, is healing that mind-body connection. There's a film about this work, about the power of the inner physician and inner healing, and two films actually that are now becoming a docuseries that came out in 2022 and went viral to 60 countries. So I'm always trying to get more people to check it out. ReleaseTheMovie.com. The film's called Release the Movie, and you can go see it on ReleaseTheMovie.com. We released it free to the world there.
Cool.
So,
Wow. Well, this has been amazing. Thanks, Chef Micah. I've
Thank
enjoyed
you.
this chat a lot. I've learned a lot.
thank you for taking the time to come check us out.